Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm here today with Chris Hutchings. Chris, hello. Thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm very well, Sanjay. Thank you for having me.
Chris, you probably wouldn't describe yourself this way, but I'm going to describe you this way. You're a bit of an SEO and marketing guru. Your roles have predominantly been management level roles in SEO. Your last gig, I think your last paid gig, was as the chief marketing officer at Quidco. You've now formed your own tech startup, eOpinion.org, which is awesome. And despite your immense technical knowledge and experience, you're not a coder. You don't know how to code. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, eOpinion.org, and then how you've gotten this far.
That's terrific.
Awesome, great. So let's. I want to understand where eOpinion comes from. Like, what's the motivation? What's the beginning of this? But I want to go a little further back, even to your previous side hustles, because I know you have had side hustles in the past.
I'm one of those people. I have ideas about everything, right? I look at anything that's going on, whether it's a business, and I think I could do it. And I don't know if it's like a problem I have or a benefit. I think sometimes it's great and sometimes it's terrible, but I just can't help myself. I can't help registering domain names. I can't help sort of writing one-page business plans about things. And yeah, I've had side hustles ever since I changed my career in 2008. It's been a thing that I've done. I mean, I've had numerous affiliate sites. I've had, interestingly, one of my early ones was an interview site called 10Q Interview. And this would have been back in 2009 maybe. And it was just a stupid thing that I started with my cousin. And we managed to get interviews with Hollyoaks stars, with TV actors from Hollywood. I can't remember his name now. It was like one of these American soapy things. We had the writer of The Inbetweeners. We had all these sort of artists called Pure Evil. And there's a little bit of me that's kicking myself that I didn't keep that going. And I think knowing what I know now about like the likes of YouTube, these podcasts and all this sort of stuff, an interview site like that could have been phenomenal. I actually rebought the domain name about 6 months ago because I thought to myself, maybe I'll give that a crack again.
Yeah, you're very much ahead of the curve on lots of things.
Well, have you heard of I'll tell you one of the things that got me really interested in it. There's a guy called Chris Guillebeau. Have you ever heard of him?
I haven't.
So he wrote a book called The $100 Startup. And it's a book I've given away to like lots and lots of people, actually. And the underlying premise of the book is, with the way tech is and with the stuff that's available to you at the moment, you can pretty much test any kind of side hustle for less than $100. And he runs through all these examples in there about, people who sell artwork or stuff, and it's really interesting. It's very inspiring because it shows you, a lot of people feel excluded from the tech world, I guess, right? From not having knowledge. But one of the theories in this book is you don't need to have that knowledge necessarily.
So, I mean, no code or low code, this has been growing in recent years as a movement. I guess it's a term that now they can group things that have been around for a while under. And I guess those things, they're more and more prevalent and predominant now. So you don't really need to code, do you, anymore?
No. And look, there's never been a better time in recent history to develop stuff that you want to develop, right? I mean, even going back 10 years, WordPress then wasn't what WordPress is now, or the likes of Ghost, or, you can even get a Notion database and have a website spun up on Potion in like 5 minutes. And, you don't need to know any HTML, you don't need to know any CSS, any of that sort of stuff. And it's a lot more accessible now than it's ever been.
Just before we move on, I want to go back to that point you made there about the $100 startup. I know you have some pretty strong opinions about how people should be verifying their ideas, right?
I mean, it's an interesting you say that actually, because I just made quite a big decision about eOpinion on the back of this. But the point of that book is you can verify an idea in under $100, right? Essentially, that's what it comes down to. And there are ways of doing it, finding that product market fit before you go and, sink your life savings or go and borrow hundreds of thousands from the investors or the bank or whatever. And I think it's an important part of starting a business, right? Because what you don't want to do is take all that risk and all that money, take a break out of your career, all this sort of stuff, put your house on the line, all that, without actually knowing that there's a solid chance it's going to survive. I always think back to a quote my dad told me years and years and years ago. It kind of just sort of shows where I guess the business mindset comes from. I must have still been at school when he told me this, but he said that starting a business isn't difficult, or making a successful business isn't difficult. He said primarily you've got two options. One is you start something brand new, or second, you find something that someone else is doing and do it either different or better, or both. And that quote has sort of stuck with me for years and years and years, because the truth is, trying to find something new in this day and age is incredibly difficult. I'd maybe even go as far as saying impossible. Unless you are the sort of the Mark Zuckerbergs of this world, or the Bezoses, and you've really got that, or the Elon Musks. These guys they're not normal compared to the rest of us. They are bona fide genius. But for the rest of us, mere mortals, I think that there are plenty of businesses out there that you can be inspired by, can take parts of what they're doing, and that's kind of primarily, well, not primarily. That's exactly what I've done with eOpinion, right? I can dress it up how I like, but it is a survey company. And there are plenty of survey companies around. So I had to try and work out what I could add to that mix to make it stand out, to make it different, which I think I've done, hopefully. But just going back to your original question about verifying an idea, if there are plenty of businesses out there doing similar to what you want, then there's an audience for it, right? That there's a target market. Now, that's not to say it's going to be easy. Definitely not, because there are lots of people already out there doing what you want to do or similar, and you have to steal or take market share from them, which, some of these companies have been around a long time and they've got good relationships, which is, an important part of business more than anything. So, verifying an idea is good, but, if there's someone doing something similar, then you can almost consider it verified already to a certain extent.
Tell me about eOpinion. So from the outside looking in, like in terms of like a shop front, people come to eOpinion. Well, what do they see? What is it? What do you tell people about it?
It's a different business in the sense that it has B2B and B2C, which is required, but also provides its own challenges, which, sometimes I like and sometimes I don't. But if you are coming at it from a business perspective, you see so this comes back to what I was saying a minute ago about changing things and niching down. So the underlying point of eOpinion is no survey, or we call them speedy polls, which is trademarked. I now have 3 trademarks, and I've never had a trademark before, which is
Wow.
quite a thing for me. But the speedy polls will never take longer than 30 seconds for a participant to take. Now, that's important because surveys in general, I'm sure you get them, Sanjay, right? Like in your inbox all the time, businesses wanting your opinion on something or feedback on something. It's like, have you got 15 minutes to spare to give us your feedback on these red trainers you bought from our shop 2 days ago. So
Mm.
no one's got 15 minutes, right? No one.
No.
And what that means is you end up, as a business, spending money on a survey that has really low take-up rates, even lower completion rates. It just doesn't mean anything. It doesn't add any value. So I am of the opinion that you can get a lot of data and a lot of insights from 4 or 5 multiple choice questions. I've got stats to back up that my completion rates and take-up rates are higher than the norm. And you build that trust with the participant. They then come back because it's almost like an interesting thing for them to do, as opposed to boring them. And it's an engaging thing for them to do. But where I've sort of changed things a little bit, actually, is when I was setting up the business. So I'll take you back a few years, and where the idea actually came from was a previous company I worked at, and I was trying to get a survey done for digital marketing purposes. And the company I was at, budgets were a bit tight, and as soon as everyone found out I was doing a survey, everyone wanted a piece of the pie, right? The product team was like, oh, quick, we can add in a question about the product. The brand team, like, oh, we can ask a question about brand perception. The rest of the marketing team wanted other stuff. The UX team wanted a question. Before I knew it, I had this survey that was like 30 questions long. And was incredibly expensive to execute and performed terribly, like honestly, shockingly bad. And it was around that time, and this was 6 years ago, and it was around that time that I really sort of started thinking, there's something in this of doing it quicker and doing it better and doing it a lot more interestingly. So then fast forward to now, when I've launched it, I sort of ignored my own advice about niching down and decided I was going to throw in HR, marketing, brand, product, all these different departments. And it's about focus, right? I haven't got time to focus on everything. So I'm actually currently in the process, I don't know when this will go to air, but I'm currently in the process of paring it back to just digital marketing. And I think that the other stuff will come later on, but I have to niche it down because I need to focus and I need to do one thing very well. And then once I can get that thing very well, then obviously, the funds and the money comes in and you can expand. And as long as everything follows that 30-second speedy poll basis, then it'll be fine. But I'm too busy at the moment trying to spin too many plates, and as a result, you sort of don't do as good a job as you think you can. And I wrote down this thing when I first started about why I think eOpinion can win and can go up against the big boys and girls in the market. And that was 3 reasons, right? One is I have a marketing background. So I know why I would do a survey, right? I know if I was on the other side, if I was the client, what I'm trying to achieve from it. And that's important because, and this is no disrespect to any of the account managers anywhere else, but if they don't understand that, then it makes them different. That makes it difficult for them to execute it as well, I think. Secondly, I don't have massive overheads, right? I'm currently a solopreneur, as you call it. I have a few people I outsource to and a few people I have on contract, but that means I don't have massive overheads. So therefore I can charge less. And one of the big things in the survey world is expenses, right? Some of these surveys are unbelievably expensive, and unbelievably expensive. And you never know. The problem is with a survey is you don't know what the results are going to be. So you could spend all this money on a survey, and the data could come back not actually supporting what the message of your campaign is, and it's a waste. So I charge what I think is a fair market rate. Actually, no, it's a very fair rate, and it's a good rate in the market in comparison to the rest. And the third point is because I've been building this side hustle for nearly 6 years, I've been building out my panel. And I touched on that briefly earlier, the question you asked about, about B2B and B2C. So when people come to my site, you ask what do they see, right? So you've got the B2B, who are the people who want a survey. But then you've got the B2C, right? I need people to join the panel. I need people to be engaged, and I need people to enjoy doing it. So that's, for me, is a B2C aspect, right? And I need to get people signing up to share their thoughts. And I've been doing that 6 years. So what that means is, and this is the third reason why I think it will work, is I have a really sizable panel. And actually now it's kind of, I've gone public with it being a main hustle. That panel is growing like quickly every day, which is amazing.
Tell me how you managed to do all this. Like what tech did you use? What things are in play here?
So one of the early side hustles I did was I did a few affiliate sites back in 2009, and I didn't know anything about anything, and I just wanted a website. I didn't know what a website was. I didn't know anything about the technology that drove it. I was pretty green, and I ended up chatting to this fella who I met online somewhere. I can't even remember where it was, but he offered to build me the site. Right, I talked him through my idea. It wasn't totally complex, but he ended up building me this WordPress site, which was essentially, I don't know, 5 or 6 pages with the capacity to put posts on as well. And he charged me $5,000 for it, which at the time, look, at the time, this was 12 years ago, I guess it was pretty market rate, right? And I don't begrudge the guy for making that, but it was $5,000, and it was a lot of money, and it sort of made me want to learn what he'd done, or at least, not to necessarily go to the level he did. I didn't want to be a developer. I didn't want to be a coder or any of that, but I like to understand things, and whether that's building my garden shed or, I don't know, fixing the boiler, or that's probably a bit of an extreme example, but I like to understand how things work, right? I don't necessarily want to do them full time, but for me, I think it's good to know that what holds everything together. So anyway, I started tinkering around with WordPress. I bought a domain. I bought a dummy site, and I basically taught myself WordPress. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm definitely not an expert, but I know enough to cause a bit of havoc. And I mean, I know from your perspective, Sanjay, and I guess probably a lot of your audience who are, tech aficionados, WordPress is probably a bit of a dirty word, but from someone who's not got a techie background, it's great, right? There's plugins galore, there's themes you can add. But don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm now at the point where I can customize stuff a lot more, but everything for me currently is pinned upon WordPress. And from a tech perspective, I use Zapier, I use Typeform, I use obviously GA's in there. But Zapier is a good one for me. I'm assuming a lot of your audience know, but for those who don't, I guess Zapier is, I don't know, how would you describe it, Sanjay? It's like sort of the middleman for a lot of tech products, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a thing that can connect to different things, and you just push a button or you tell it to automatically do something when something happens, right?
Yeah. So for someone like me who doesn't know how to code, it's unbelievable, because it means I can connect up all the different tools I'm using. And it's simple, unbelievably simple, right? And I dread to think that the tech that goes behind it to fix it, to make it happen, is incredible, no doubt. But for me, I can hook up this platform with this platform. I can create a rule that says if someone signs up here, put them into this bucket. And it's that simple. And this is what I was saying earlier, right? You know, the tech that's out there these days is just phenomenal. And it means that people like me can create workflows that mean that, you know, someone signs up somewhere, I can then set it to automatically fire out the message, do some other automation on the side, and it's just phenomenal, right? It's stuff that would take me, if I had to do it manually, it would take me 10 minutes per person, right? So, per interaction, which no one's got time for. But yeah, Zapier is incredible.
Do you have any sort of goals, any metrics that you're sort of capturing? How do you measure your progression?
Everything I do, I have a North Star. And I do that at a high level, i.e. around eOpinion. And I also do it at anything I'm trying to, anything I do, right? Any kind of task I'm going to put in. So my North Star metric for eOpinion is I measure number of surveys completed. Now, I have a target in my head of 1 million. You know, it's just a number plucked out the air. But I want 1 million surveys, speedy polls completed. Now that's my North Star metric, and then I know that everything underneath I need to do contributes to making that happen, right? So if I get more panel members, then every time I put a speedy poll out, then I get more more completions, which contributes. If I get a number of new clients in the digital PR space who want a speedy poll, then that's more speedy polls, therefore more completions. And then you come down another tier from that, is like, right, okay, how do I get more panel members? So I might have an initiative to grow the panel, which I have ongoing all the time. And that contributes all the way up to that North Star metric, right? And I try and put that philosophy into everything that I do.
So now you are very good at marketing and you're very good at SEO. I assume these things come in very handy now when you're trying to build your startup?
Yeah. I mean, well, you say that actually. Marketing as a whole, most definitely. SEO, I probably am not focusing that much from an SEO basis, believe it or not. There's certain aspects to it, obviously. I mean, the content I'm creating, I obviously always keep an SEO lens on it, but as channels go, SEO is not up there for me in any of my acquisition strategies. Okay. From a B2C perspective, i.e. adding people to the panel, I rely very much on social media and word of mouth, viral marketing. I'm trying to do a lot of stuff around, word of mouth is the single most efficient marketing channel there is, right? You'll find it with your podcast, your YouTube channel, right? If I tell one person about it, and then they tell one person about it, then they tell one person about it, that's when you start seeing some really impressive growth, in my opinion. I do a lot of paid social stuff where I will target similar survey companies, should we say, with a survey of my own, highlighting, why people should join my panel. And they are the two big drivers of panel growth for me. Because the truth is, people aren't SEO is great, and as a channel I love it, and it's been my bread and butter for years, but people aren't searching necessarily for paid or incentivized surveys. There's a little bit of volume out there, but not a lot. Not a lot that I'm going to, focus all my attention on it. And realistically, from a B2B side of things, a lot of that is your network. A lot of that is sales people, on sales calls, which I have a really big issue with sales people. And it's not an approach I want to take or feel I need to take with my business, thankfully, at the moment.
We need to have another one of these, maybe another few of these, because we haven't even scratched the surface. And our time is up.
That's my fault, Sanjay. I'm sorry.
No problem. This has been brilliant. Thank you so much. But, before I let you go, I need the joke of the show.
I mean, look, I'm not very good at jokes, but I'll tell you a story instead.
All right.
So I had a call from my dad the other day. He was really, really angry. And he told me he thought he'd been hacked. He was pretty shocked about it. And I said to him, I was like, look, knowing my dad as I do, I said, look, it's probably because you've got quite a simple password. And he was like, of course I haven't. What are you talking about? I said, oh, go on then. I said, what's your password? And he goes, it's Iron Man, Superman, Spider-Man, Thor, Shrek, Batman, Robin, Hulk, Berlin. I was like, wow. That's pretty complex. I can kind of understand now why you're pretty annoyed at being hacked. I was like, how come you went for something so long? And he said, well, I normally go just for my birthday, but when I tried to put that in, they wouldn't have it. Instead, they asked me for 8 characters and a capital.
Hey, nice one, Chris. And here's you saying you don't know how to tell a joke.
Well, I'm a dad now, Sanjay, so I need to learn some dad jokes.
And that's all, folks. Thanks a lot for tuning in. For more info, for questions, comments, or feedback, please head on over to aheadintech.com and don't forget to subscribe.